Good morning, everybody. So today we're making something from another produce that is typically on at a good price this time of year, and that's cabbage. I happen to love cabbage. My family loves cabbage salad. I like fried cabbage. I like boiled cabbage. But if we're wanting to keep it for the winter, then today I'm going to make some sauerkraut. The cabbage has been washed, and I'm going to just cut off this bottom hard part. And I will say, like, you want a sharp knife, and mine are not that great right now because cabbage is hard to cut. So I'm going to begin cutting it in half. Once we get the cabbage cut in half, I'm going to take out the middle core. And then I'm going to weigh the cabbage because that's going to tell me how much salt I want. And the ratio, I told you it was hard. The ratio of cabbage to salt is you want your salt to be 2% of the weight of your cabbage. If you look at some recipes, they're going to say, you know, for a head of cabbage, put this much salt in tablespoons or whatever. That's really not accurate because every head of cabbage weighs different and they don't always fit into the small, medium, and large. Once you get it cut in half, it's much easier. So I just want to see where that center core is, and I want to cut down approximately halfway through. And I'm going to remove this center core. There's not a lot of it there, so that's good. Do not throw this away yet, because you're going to have to weight your cabbage to keep it under the brine in your jar, and you can use that core to help with that. So I'm going to weigh my cabbage in grams. Okay, so the cores are out. I'm going to zero my bowl, and I'm going to place these in the bowl. Okay, so mine comes out to 1848 grams. So I'm going to multiply that by 0.02. And that will tell me how much salt I'm going to need. So after weighing my cabbage and calculating that weight at 2%, my amount of salt that I'm going to need is 36.96 grams. So I'm just going to put 37. Salt is really important. It is what preserves this as it's fermenting. This is a lacto-fermented sauerkraut. It's not going to be canned. It's going to naturally ferment and break down and get that flavor that we all love. So let's get started. So when you're cutting your cabbage, you're going to try and do it as uniformly as you can in slices. They are going to break down a bit, so they don't have to be really, really thin. They just have to be pretty uniform, and they are fairly thin. There, that's better. Now, I could use my mandolin to do this, but one of the purposes of these videos, it's great to have the tools. But if you don't have them, you still want to be able to do things. So I'm showing you, you don't have to have the fancy tools in order to do these things. It doesn't really matter which direction you cut it, just whatever works best for getting it as uniform as possible. And right now this is working for me. You can keep turning it, you can... They don't have to be the same length, it's more about the width. So I'm trying something different. I was cutting top to bottom. I'm going to go across the cabbage. It seems to be easier to get it uniform. You don't run into really thick areas. I quartered the cabbage, as you saw. So I'm just going to cut each quarter side to side, trying to keep these strands as even as possible, and still not hitting perfection, but that's okay. So the other reason I want to do this today like this is because not everybody has a mandolin, and I want my channel to be as user-friendly and simple as possible. And if you have a mandolin, by all means use it. If you're using a food processor, make sure you use the thicker slice mode. Do not use the grater. It's too fine and it just makes it all go to mush. So you can use a food processor, you can use a mandolin, or you can just get out a knife. Now, if I was processing a bunch of cabbage from a garden or whatever, yeah, I'd probably be using something. Because this is therapeutic. Doing a whole bunch of cabbages this way would be torture. There's a fine line sometimes between therapeutic and torturous. I would put on music, I'd probably light candles, and just create an atmosphere and enjoy. Make it a pleasurable experience as much as possible. Okay, so my cabbage is cut. I already know how much salt I need. I'm putting it on my digital scale, and 37 grams. No wonder I remembered that. I'm using kosher salt. That's the other thing. You can use a fine salt, but it cannot be iodized. So be careful. I bought Himalayan pink salt at a famous box store. Never thought that it would be iodized, and it was. So I can't use that. That works against your fermentation. So you're going to pour this salt all over this cabbage. And that's why I like using weights. So that's another point. Kosher salt is coarser than your table salt or even a non-iodized fine salt. And so a lot of the recipes were, oh, it's this many teaspoons for 1 head of cabbage. But I'm assuming the coarse salt, because it's bigger, it's going to take up more room in your teaspoon. I'm not sure you're getting the same amount as if you put a teaspoon of fine salt. So that's why weights are so much more accurate. Turn the scale. So now I'm going to take my watch off. Now the next part of this process is to begin to massage that salt just a little bit. It's going to sit for 15 minutes after you've massaged the salt in. And what that's going to do, it's going to start to break down the cabbage and pull some of the liquid, the natural liquid, out of the cabbage to get the juices starting. So I'm going to massage this in, I'm going to wait 15 minutes, and I'll be back. So I don't know how I did it, but I lost all the audio for this clip, so I'm just going to do a voiceover. All that's happening here is I've been massaging that salt into the cabbage and getting it wilted. I did switch over to using a wooden spoon to pound the cabbage for a while, and when it got even more wilted, I went back to doing it with my hands. I found that that was easier than when it was freshly cut and still thicker. So I just want you to know, it doesn't have to be done all in one shot. If you get tired and you need to break, take a break, you're going to really want a lot of liquid and a lot of wilting and bruising on that cabbage to be able to stuff it in the jars and come out with a full jar of sauerkraut. You are going to want to get your hands into that at some point because it helps you to find the pieces that either didn't get chopped finely or they were just thicker and chunkier than they should be, and you can break them up in the bowl at that time. Okay guys, so I'm back. That was quite the workout. I don't know if you can see my bowl from there, but this is how much cabbage there is now. It's gone up from, or gone down from being piled fairly high. And there is quite a bit of water in the bottom. And now what we're going to do is we're going to pack it in our jars. Make sure your hands are clean and just start filling your jar. And you're going to fill it about 1 inch at a time, and you're doing 1 layer at a time, and guess what you get to do to each layer? You get to pound it again, because you're wanting to pack this in as tight as you can, and it also helps it to continue to release more juice. And you can use whatever you want to press that down. Just about everything I went to use, I realized I've already packed away. So I had to scrounge. So you're just pushing it down really carefully, trying to compact everything and release more of those juices. So when you get that layer done, you throw in another one. You're going to fill this jar about 1 inch from the top, because again, as this ferments, it will expand and juices will bubble. And if you fill it right to the top, you're going to have a mess all over your counter, guaranteed. So as you pack it, you're going to notice the juices starting to form at the bottom. Pack it down as well as you can. This is rubberized, so this actually works pretty good. This is the scraper that I use for my blender. It's always so hard to get things off the side and out of the bottom of a blender. But I love my blender, so my blender's from Pampered Chef, and this rubber mallet or rubber scraper is also from Pampered Chef. So it makes it easier. So I'm just going to keep doing this till I have this jar full, and then I'll come back. Now you can do it right on your counter if you want to. I put a cutting mat underneath because I knew I slop everything. Okay, so I have my jar full. So the liquid is way above the cabbage. You have to keep it underneath that liquid or you will get mold. And one of the ways to do that is I'm going to take one of the cores that I kept out, and I'm just going to put it on, and I'm going to press it down so that my sauerkraut is submerged, and then I'm going to take a piece of one of the outer leaves. Do not throw these out when you take them off the cabbage at the beginning. They can come in quite useful, and I'm just going to pack that all around down the sides of the cabbage just to keep it tucked in. And that's why you keep headspace as well, because you want that liquid to stay up and it gives you some room to secure the cabbage under these leaves and the core. So I have enough, I think, for 2 jars actually. Sorry, I'm a clean as I go kind of person, and that's why I put the mat underneath, because it's so much easier at the end just to pick that mat up and scrape it off, dump it, whatever you have to do with it. So now, the other thing I want to mention before I go on any further, your jars do not have to be sterilized. They just have to be cleaned and rinsed well. After you have your jars filled, and you're going to put it on your counter in a spot that is not in direct sunlight, you're going to want to put it on a plate or something underneath it that has a bit of an edge, because as it ferments, sometimes the juices can start to bubble out of the jar, and you don't want that all over your counter. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes there's not enough juice in the cabbage to have that much liquid left over, And if I do a second jar, there might not be, although I still have a whole bunch left in my bowl. I didn't put any liquid in this. This is just from pressing that cabbage down. So if you have to make a brine, and you can, if you're short on liquid, you can make a brine. I think it's a quart of water and 2 tablespoons of salt is what I saw. You can pour some of that on top. If you're using tap water, it cannot be chlorinated. We're on a well, so I don't worry about that. But if you have chlorinated town or city water, to unchlorinate it, all you have to do is take it out the night before, fill up your jar and let it sit out. Actually, I would do it the morning before. It should sit out for about 24 hours and the chlorine will evaporate. So just a couple tips. Once you get your cabbage all packed in and you know that there's enough liquid in there, you're just going to put a lid on, and you're going to put it on loosely, like finger tight. Because as this ferments, some of the air needs to escape or you're creating a bomb. And even with that, if you're using regular mason jar lids, every day or so, you should check it. If you see a lot of bubble activity, I would burp it. I would just take the lid off, let out any accumulated gases, and put it back on again, finger tight. You're gonna let this sit. Honestly, it was so varied. Some people say 2 days, some say 7 to 10. So it can be anywhere from 2 days to 7 to 10. And there's a lot of reasons that it's a different number. For one thing, it depends on the temperature of your kitchen. If your kitchen's nice and warm, it's going to ferment quicker. If it's cold or cooler, it's going to take longer. If your cabbage is sliced thicker, it's going to take longer. If it's thinner, it'll take less time. And people like varying degrees of sourness in their sauerkraut. Some like it mild, some, like my grandfather, whew, you couldn't, you could probably strip paint. But anyway, he loved it. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of factors. So after 2 days, if you see bubble activity and you see that it's working, I would keep tasting it every day until it gets to the degree of sourness that you prefer. And once that happens, you're going to put this in the fridge. Unless you have cold storage or something like that. Yeah, it needs to be refrigerated. It's not processed. It's not canned. It's not pasteurized. So it needs to be kept cool once you've reached the degree of fermentation that you prefer. But anyway, I hope you try this. If you do try it, please let me know. If you like this kind of thing, if this is helping you or giving you ideas or inspiring you, please subscribe to my channel. Just hit the subscribe button down below. I don't know how that shows up on here. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and select all notifications. And that way, when I post a new video, I try to do 2 a week, then you will get notified and you will be able to tag along on this journey of becoming more self-sufficient, of making the most of the things that we have or can obtain, especially if they're on sale, in season. If you get a bargain, it helps save money. And that's where we all need to be, and it's healthy. It's so healthy for you. This is so healthy for you with the probiotics in fermented sauerkraut. Not canned, not pasteurized. The stuff you're going to get in the store, unless it says that it's raw and it has to be kept in the fridge. If you find it on the shelf, walk on by, because that's not going to give you the probiotics and all the good things that are in fermented sauerkraut that can really increase your gut health, especially your gut health. The probiotics are the good bacteria that our stomachs need to be able to not have leaky gut. It helps protect our immune system. It can help you lose weight because it's full of fiber and low calorie but those probiotics are key to so many things. If you have good gut health, you're processing the things you eat better. It's going to cut down on sugar cravings, like so many things. It also boosts your immune system with the probiotics. And so what I was reading, if you want to use it like a health preventative, they recommend at least 1 tablespoon per day. That's all. You don't have to eat half a jar. A tablespoon per day will introduce some of the good, necessary gut health bacteria that actually, when you get your gut working and functioning and in a healthy state, you won't believe how much that affects your overall health. And a tablespoon a day, this is going to last a while if that's all I did. But you go to the store and you're buying probiotics if you are interested in probiotics, and they're not cheap and they're time sensitive. Their effectiveness wears off over time. This can be stored in the fridge for months, probably even longer. All the fridge is doing, it's reducing the fermentation. It's stopping that fermentation so that it's not continuously fermenting and becoming more and more sour. So yeah, try it. It's easy. I mean, I did have to pound a long time, and that's another thing I wanted to mention. I have a bad shoulder, and I can tell you, like, it wasn't easy. And so I pounded for quite a while. And as it started to get small, I used my hands, and I found it much easier to use my hands at that point of the preparation than at the beginning, where it's hard and it's, they're not wilted the way they were at the point when I started to massage it instead of pound it. The other thing you can do is you can leave it in the salt overnight. Cover it, put it on your counter, use the salt ratio, put a towel over it, not a anything sealed or anything like that. Just cover it with a towel, leave it out on your counter overnight, and check it in the morning. And the salt itself will break it down quite a bit. The other thing is, if you're pounding or you're massaging and you're getting tired, take a break. It doesn't have to be done all in one session. Take a break, cover it if you want. If you're going to be any length of time, I would cover it for sure. And again, as you're off resting or doing whatever else you have to do, that salt continues to work and continues to break down the cabbage. And when you come back, it's going to have eliminated a lot of the pounding or massaging that you have to do. So there's many ways. If you have questions, leave some in the comments below. I don't know everything about it. I've just read a lot about it, and I can help you, at least point you in a direction to find out some information. So I hope you try it, and I'll let you know how it tastes. If it's terrible, we'll have to try again, but I don't think it will be. I have made sauerkraut before, but I'm pretty sure we canned it because I didn't know anything about fermentation at that point. I ferment a lot of things actually, so I make my own kombucha, and sometimes I forget about it and I don't feed it the way it's supposed to be fed, replenishing the tea and everything. And so when it becomes too strong and it's vinegary, I use it instead of apple cider vinegar. It tastes the same to me, like it has basically the same type of flavor, and I use it in apple cider vinegar. Then I don't have to buy apple cider vinegar, and it tastes good. It's live, like raw apple cider vinegar. It's like raw. There's mother, there's all the, again, probiotics, so many healthy things in fermenting. So yeah, that's my video for today. Have a good day, stay healthy, find some deals, and have some fun with this. Have some fun.